Welcome to the Partners Podcast, where you get exclusive behind-the-scenes access to entrepreneurs who are relentlessly building real, profitable companies. Join us as we ask them the hard questions so you can take away the mindset, strategy, and tactics that launch them to success. Welcome to another episode of the Partners Podcast, joined by a good friend of mine, Andy Lassiter of K9 Marketing, all the way out in Charleston, South Carolina. And he's crushing it. He's crushing it. $1.4 million in revenue last year with a team that he can count on. And where are you out of right now? You're working remote, right?
Yeah, I'm actually in the Dominican Republic with my family on an extended little vacation in Cabarete, kite surfing spot.
How extended are we talking about?
This year we'll be here for 5 months. Actually, it's been growing progressively year over year, and this year I really took a leap of faith and put a lot of trust in my team. So I'm managing and working remotely in the winter.
Yeah, not too many agency owners can take 5 months out, in Latin America, Dominican Republic, to enjoy the beach, enjoy kite surfing is what you're doing out there too, right?
Yeah, that's my hobby. So,
that's cool.
Yeah,
awesome.
It's great. It's a real honor and not something that I take for granted or take lightly, because we have put in a lot of years and hours and time to get to this point, of course.
Cool. Well, hey, let's jump into it for our listeners.
All right.
Who is Andy? How did you come to be? How did you start your agency, and how long have you been at it?
Oh boy, how much time you have? It's a loaded question, but as it regard to the agency, I've been the owner of K9 Marketing for 10 years now, and the company has actually been around for 15 years, and we're in the Charleston, South Carolina area, which is a smaller city of about 750,000 people, but a lot of luxury homes and thriving businesses in that market. And I'm the second owner of the company. K9, as it started, was one of the first real estate specific video production companies in the Southeast. And if you go on our YouTube channel, we have videos dating back to 2009. And the guy I bought the company from literally had a Sony Handycam on a tripod and was running around town making the first real estate videos of their kind. This was before drones or anything. And he handed off the company to me in 2015. And I've been at the helm for 10 years this year.
Cool. Well, that's exciting. And what, did you buy the business, or did you inherit it as like an employee, or how did it work? Like, did you have to put up some money there?
I did. He gave me Yates, big shout out and a lot of gratitude to Yates, who started K9 Marketing, and he owner financed me at a very generous rate. And I won't disclose the exact amount, but it was an extremely generous deal because he was tired of hustling video after 5 years, and I think ready to pass the torch on to someone with a little more spark and enthusiasm. And that was right around the time when drones came out. I owned a DJI Phantom 1 with the GoPro attachment on the bottom of it, and switched from analog Sony Handycams to, gosh, I can't even remember, DSLR cameras. And
did you even see where you're shooting? Could you even see where you're shooting with the GoPro attachment, or did you have to like just fly around and then see it afterwards?
It had a little internal camera that you could then see on the controller through the DJI app. But yeah, some of that original footage is all warped, and we have some of that going back 10 years now at this point. And
wow.
I hustled really hard. I was broke and brokenhearted at the time, and I took out a credit card, found a great office lease, quit a full-time job, and decided I was going to go all in. And at the time I was doing web development, graphic design, the full suite of agency services, and got such a good deal that I kind of brought the real estate media on as a side hustle, but it quickly gained momentum. And I solo freelanced for, I want to say, 3 years before I even made my first hire. And then I was able to hire a full-time photographer, and then I hired a social media manager, and then an admin. Kicked out my office mates that I was subleasing with. And fast forward to this year, 2024, we have 13 employees and we have a 2,000 square foot office space and studio on Folly Beach, which is a little town outside of Charleston, a few blocks from the ocean. And we have a big,
Awesome. A
yeah.
beach office. That's pretty amazing. I
Thanks.
feel like
It's
you're
fun.
you're you're on vacation and your normal job is a vacation and you're pretty much permanently living the dream.
Yeah, I had to overcome some obstacles early on in my professional career. And so after jumping some hurdles, I've really tried to build a life that I don't need a vacation from.
Awesome. I love that. So tell me about the progression of you as an agency owner, working for yourself, doing everything on your own. Like what spurred you to bring on your first hire and where were you at, I guess, revenue wise, and like how did you make it make sense for you?
Gosh, I have to think back. It has
Or are we time
been
traveling too fast?
no, but it was lean the first few years. I've kept meticulous books over the years, and I remember my first few years doing well under 50K a year, and really having to hustle to do that, and having some expensive office rent and some overhead that seemed insurmountable at the time. And I met my accountant at a bar one night, surf bar on Folly Beach, rest in peace. It's a classic spot. And I give her a lot of credit because she came into my life really early on, helped me get my bookkeeping sorted out, and has been a trusted advisor ever since. And I had a couple of 1099 contractors that were helping me out. And I want to say 3 years in, she really cracked the whip on me and said, "Hey, if you want to grow this thing, if you want to be legitimate and build a proper business, I think you should put this guy on salary. If you're talking about hiring this person, I think you should just go ahead and do it. I have a lot of faith looking at 3 years of your numbers. The growth seems steady, and I think you're ready." And so I jumped in really early on and hired 2 or 3 W-2 employees. And that was really the beginning of it. And that's when we saw exponential growth and jumped from 50K a year to 100K a year. And then one year, I think we jumped from 100 to 250. And then we've had pretty consistent growth in the ballpark of 20 to 30% every year since.
Very cool. So after you brought on your first like team members, how did that change the dynamic of your agency? How did people, your clients see you? How did the shift happen between like them, only working with you and now working with the team?
That's a great question. And it wasn't a really clear delineation. I continue to work alongside my team, shooting, editing. And this was really before everyone was trying to outsource every image for 40 cents a pop. I mean, we would come back to the studio and hand edit every single photo that we sent out for the first 4 years of my business. My media pros were coming back along with me, and we were cutting every video, editing every photo, doing crappy HDR blends and getting them out, the next day, often that afternoon, and working late, really grinding. And I reflect back at those times and think about the profit margins I had, which were really good, but how much we were working. And obviously, the whole industry has shifted towards efficiency and outsourcing since then. But it was not. It was a slow burn. Obviously, I had to hire. I lost a couple of key employees. It's not been without challenges, that's for sure. And I brought on a social media manager early on. We were one of the first people in the city of Charleston to offer social media management. And I had sold a couple of clients and had just enough volume to say, like, hey, I'm going to bring on a first hire. And at that time, I structured the program based on what I would want as a business owner, right? So I was like, I want daily posting, I want engagement, I want commenting, liking, sharing, all that. And in hindsight, that was that was back when you could build a following on Instagram with a
Yeah.
modest amount of work, right? And it was still all really novel. And anyone that was putting out content a few times a week was like a big deal. And now it's just become, God, so oversaturated
Yeah. Now
with
if you can
junk.
get 50 followers in a month, you're doing a good job as a
Seriously,
yeah,
seriously. And we had a couple of
especially if it's a
videos.
local.
Yeah. It's
local
crazy
brand.
how much it's changed, but that really helped get a lot of, I hate to say clout, but a lot of social proof in our local market. And hey, these guys are doing it, and it's been a real slow churn. I mean, I started with a handful of clients, and I think last year we did 2,500 projects for about 600 unique clients. So it's
Wow.
definitely evolved. Yeah.
Yeah, quite a bit, quite a bit. So, what's what would you say is the biggest challenge that you faced, throughout the years, whether it's like mentally, within like your own headspace or with the business, like, with employees or financially? Like, what's the biggest challenge that you've had to overcome in the last, decade?
You know, I, I think it is, in hindsight, a mindset thing, really putting a lot of trust in that process and not being scared to invest, whether it was in new equipment, in advertising, in an expensive office space, in a new employee whose salary was going to obliterate your profit margins. But I feel like I've done a good job of really staying true and not being scared to spend a little money and understand that you can't just look at your business revenue weekly or monthly or even quarterly. We're coming around on the first part of 2024, and this is the time of year where I have a really in-depth look at my books and a meeting with my accountant and my leadership team, and we say, hey, let's analyze this and take it year by year and not week by week and month by month, and really put a lot of trust in that process that if you build it, that the business is going to grow commensurate with the amount of effort and investment that you put in it as well. So that's been a real key, I think, for me. The industry, as you well know, has really shifted towards uh, kind of a race to the bottom in terms of outsourcing and trying to save a buck on every little component of it. And that's really never been my philosophy or approach to this industry. And I think that's made us stand out and be a little bit unique in that all of our video editors are in-house. We still outsource some interior stuff, but we have an in-house leadership team. All of our media pros are full-time. And yeah, my payroll would take your breath away on a monthly basis. But then after a quarter, after a year, you look back at it and it's really satisfying to see, like, oh yeah, these investments paid off. And the overhead went up 5% last year. We spent $50,000 on new cameras and Sony gear, but we grew 20% and it was worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, that you're building brick by brick. If it feels like over, and you've been patient with it, because there's some entrepreneurs out there that I've talked to in this space. They're like, dude, I'm gonna make $1 million company in 2 years. I'm gonna put everyone out of business mentality. Which, like, there's ways that aids them, but there's ways that hurts them. Like, for me, I experienced rapid growth 3-4 times where I was spending, and then all of a sudden winter rolled around, and I was I was at a deficit of $80,000 a month, and I'm like, or even more. There was one month I was running a $250,000 deficit, and like, I'm like, oh, no worries, I'm gonna make this money back, in March, and then the market didn't speed up as fast, and then like, it felt like I was building the car while the car was going 70 miles per hour, versus I think you've done it in a way where it's quite sustainable, in a way where have you ever faced something like that where you're like, oh shit, I might go bankrupt this, in 3 months if I don't like solve this money problem?
Yeah, the pandemic, of course, was a big wrench in our gears, and the Charleston housing market shrunk by 300 or 400% in terms of number of homes on the market. And everyone went into lockdown and panic mode, and we didn't get calls for weeks. And I had a payroll of 10 employees, probably $60,000-$70,000 a month at that point. And we really thought we were going to have to lay some people off or whatever, and we ended up getting some PPP money and spacing that out. But that's been a challenge. I've lost some key employees on really short notice, including our first expansion market was it's still an ongoing challenge that I'm dealing with at this point in time. And yeah, but you're right. In this industry, and especially with a lot of the young people I see getting into the industry, there's these expectations that if you follow some magic formula, you're suddenly going to be at $1 million or have this huge scalable. But the industry, the real estate media industry as a whole, is becoming more saturated. There's more competition out there, and you know there's no secret. What's the expression about an overnight success? Like, it took me 10 years to get to a nice point of sustainability, and in that time I've done a lot of personal growth, a lot of professional growth. I've matured. I'm 40 years old. I'm an old dog in this industry compared
Yeah.
to all the guys I see in ACRE Partner now. And yeah, I think you're right. It's a good reminder to everyone that you have to persist, slow and steady. And there's some good key decisions that you can make early on as far as strategic hires, good systems and processes, consistency with your marketing and messaging that are going to hopefully help you grow at a steady clip. But I don't think it's realistic to think that there's some secret sauce or magic bullet that's going to triple your business in a year, quadruple your business in a year. And
Yeah.
as you saw with ACRE Partner, there can be some real consequences if you take that leap too fast. Or with
Yeah,
the
exactly.
AOL
There's
canvas.
a there's a sustainable level to grow. And I would say the biggest challenges I faced was just when I saw money coming in fast, I spent it fast, and I didn't just hold on to it, for the rainy day and say, hey, let me reinvest this into not new team members, but the current team that's gotten me here, and like make sure I was taking care of things. And I think that's when the screws started getting loose on my, 80-mile-per-hour car that I was building while I was driving. Like, there was a lot going on. And so looking back, what I wish I could have avoided was hiring a little bit slower, firing a little bit of faster, because there are some people who told me what I wanted to hear every time we met, but then they just wouldn't execute, and it would be 6 months, 12 months in, and I was still having them on payroll. And that was money that could have gone towards a rainy day fund, or my employees that were really uh, like lifting up the team and carrying their own weight. So it's definitely been a challenge, facing that hyper growth. And a lot of agency owners that do experience a lot of growth, be mindful of the seasonality, be mindful of, that something like COVID can happen at any time that can change the landscape of the business. And maybe not
Yeah,
COVID, but maybe, DJI comes out with a flying AI, drone bot that takes HDR photos, that films everything, with a click of a button. You don't know if that could come out in 2 years, right?
oh,
So
absolutely.
being mindful of
Competition's
all that.
coming. The Cuba Casa app, the Box Brownie app. We have a new photographer in Charleston, young guy, a sports car who does great work and came and grabbed 20% of our business overnight in a year. Stuff like that happens, and you definitely need to have a rainy day fund. You need to have that extra little money in the bank to deal with those situations when they come, because they
Yeah.
will.
But looking out on the bright side, right? Like, you're at 1.4 million with a healthy margin, enough that you can choose to step away from the business. And that, is a huge success in 10 years. Like, most people, they save 10 years and they're not even a fourth way to retirement, and you've been able to create, legacy type, potential within a 10-year time span. I think that's a lot to be excited and to be proud about, and something
Thanks.
that, you can really take a step back and be where you're at, in Dominican Republic, taking time with your family and having the business take care of take care of you while you're gone.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's not something I take for granted at all, but to be totally honest, it still feels fragile. And I don't think as business owners and entrepreneurs, we ever feel 100% secure that there's some magical safety net. We know that it's fragile. We always know that something catastrophic could happen to your health or to some key employees, or a natural disaster or whatever, you know. And I think in the back of our minds, it would be unrealistic not to have those concerns, right? So it's good to
Yeah.
have a big dose of humility, um, especially in this industry, right? You know, the real estate, the high volume media industry is kind of unforgiving, and you really have to have thick skin. You can't take anything personally in this industry. You really have to drop your ego and to be able to shake things off, to suck it up, to acknowledge when you mess up, to be very quick to make things right, to admit when you made mistakes, to remedy those mistakes, and not just remedy the mistakes, but comp the job. You know, like be ready to give to make things right, because you know the nature of real estate professionals and other small business owners. It's there's not a lot of loyalty, and so you really do have to exemplify and be a good example of you know, the person that you would want to work with as well. You know, and it's
Yeah,
easy to
for sure.
there's there's a lot of role models in this industry too, you know, and I've never really been one to be super forward facing. I've gotten on camera more in the past year than I have in the last decade to represent my business. But we've been able to grow, you know, based on a lot of personal relationships. And as I mentioned, I think I've grown a lot and matured a lot as a person, you know, gotten married, have 2 kids now, and have a big payroll that I
Yeah.
take very seriously and take really personally. And so I've really slowed my role and tried to lean into my position now as a team leader, as a face of the company, as uh, someone who handles client relationships and needs to step in when those needs arise, you know.
Absolutely. And it sounds like with the decade of experience, you've had your fair share of challenges. What are some of the big wins? Like, what are some decisions that drove a lot of success for your business, for your team? Uh, you know, whether it's key hires or it's, strategies on adopting certain, technologies. What are like three big things, big shifts in your company that allowed you to get to 1.4 million?
He hires, you know, I give so much credit, and you know Finley personally as well. She is my right hand and the CEO of the business now at this point, and has been with me for over 5 years, almost 6 years. And hiring based on your gut and based on personality and people that you really resonate with, that you like personally, that you know you can work side by side with, who you can have real talk, have difficult conversations with, who you can be transparent with and share your bank account information with. You know, I wish I had hired an admin 2 years earlier than I did. I'll just go ahead and say that right there. You know, even as if I was still out hustling 3 projects a day and editing myself, I think an administrator that can help manage your business, take the orders, do some sales, outreach, customer care is an extremely important hire, even if you're still out hustling. And secondly, I give a lot of credit to my accountant, who I mentioned earlier on, who really helped me understand the different terms around business accounting. I had zero experience. When I met Alicia, I was literally had an Excel spreadsheet with some monthly bills, and she was like, "What the hell are you doing? You know, you're starting a business and trying to grow in Excel. So let's get all your stuff itemized." And she's really helped me make some strategic decisions, like bringing everyone on full time, that I think really allowed the company to grow in a way that I wasn't worried about, you know, losing a 1099 contractor who decided they would rather do it on their own, you know. And finally, the
Yeah.
third thing
So
would
it sounds like
be,
she was like more than accountant though, right? She was like
oh,
a consultant. She was like almost a business coach saying, "Hey, it makes sense if you want to keep your contractors longer and more invested to switch them to it as an employee for these reasons." Like it sounds like she was really coaching you beyond just being a bookkeeper accountant. She was like more of a
absolutely.
CFO.
Absolutely. And I speak with her still almost every month and schedule quarterly meetings to review our P&Ls. And she advises me on HR issues, on bookkeeping stuff, on profit margins. When my B&H credit card gets a little bit too unruly, uh, and has really been a strategic of tax strategies and things like that, switching to an S corp, all those traditional tax strategies that a young, photographer doesn't even have time to think about or research. So that was really,
and that alone, just switching to an S corp pays probably for her entire service.
absolutely. And I know there's a lot of budget accounting services out there, but I would encourage everyone who's getting into the industry to, find someone locally who you can go into their office and who will come out to your space and get to know your employees and your business. And now my two executives have a relationship with her, and they call her about accounting questions and concerns and QuickBooks problems and things like that. So she has really been a great partner, and I give her a lot of credit for steering me. And then finally, I think just being a good, reasonable person and trying to lead with just lead in a way that people resonate with, that's going to attract good people to your business. I take a lot of pride in the team that we've built. I'm really proud to say that of the 13 employees right now, I consider them all great friends. And I know that they've cultivated friendships within the company. Two of them got an apartment together in downtown Charleston, and they hang out and run marathons together and stuff. And so we've really tried to build a culture that isn't just functional, but one that we're really proud of. And that I think it's reflected in the quality of the work. I think it's reflected in the customer experience. I think it's something that we can, maybe put out there a little bit. Like, yeah, we're a fun team and we love to work with you and come out to your shoots. We show behind the scenes stuff of us. I'm a pretty lighthearted guy and have a silly sense of humor. So we're always cracking jokes, and they all dressed up like me for Halloween last year. I showed up dressed as Wednesday Addams, and my entire team had a beard and a flat brim hat and sunglasses on and flip flops, and they're like, "We're Andy for Halloween." It's funny.
I love it. Yeah. I love when you can build a culture that it feels like family, and people can can do something like that, and tease their boss and be their boss for a day, with a Halloween costume. So that's awesome. Well, what are other cool things like that you've done? I mean, you have employees staying at your house, at your Airbnb, right? Like, tell me more about that. Like, there's other ways that you've built culture beyond just the normal boss. Like, you're a cool boss.
Oh,
Tell me
thanks,
more
man.
about
Yeah, they're
what
actually
makes you a
all.
cool boss.
I'm bummed because they're all heading out to Top Golf this afternoon on my dime, and I'm like, man, I'm down here. It's raining outside, and oh man. But yeah, gosh, we started a partnership with a local gym, which has been really great. So we've been doing team fitness classes this year. I'm into like yoga and meditation, and we have a yoga teacher that comes into our studio, and we set up the lights on the psych wall and like have a Zen yoga class once a month. And yeah, we have team outings. We've done team oyster roast this year. And our culture, like, we have a studio, and so I have people editing and working in the office. My media pros are in and out every day. They're always going out on a walk. They walk down to the pier and take a half-hour walk. And I try to be very reasonable as a boss when it comes to, like, hey, not micromanaging people, and not like I'm going to time block every 15 minutes, but building a climate and an atmosphere that people just have respect for each other, and trust that you're going to get the job done and do it in a reasonable amount of time. And yeah, compensation is important, obviously, too. And we try to add things like health insurance money, mileage, 401k, all the night and weekend bonuses. Like, basically all of our night and weekend work is a break even for me, because I recognize that, hey, especially in the summertime, you're asking your media pros to go out at 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, like, thanks. You're doing me a huge favor. So try to
Yeah.
incentivize those. And really, I think that's maybe not even a break even. But
Yeah, we have a
yeah,
twilight bonus as well. It's just like there's a lot of work involved, like driving out late at night. That's time that most people want to spend with their significant other or dog or
totally.
family, or do their hobbies. So like
Yeah.
we give a twilight bonus, and yeah, it's like we're cool with breaking even because we're making money on the rest of the services.
Yeah, you used to shoot too. You know it can be a grind, especially if you're trying to hustle high volume and do 2 or 3 shoots a day in twilight. So we've been in those shoes. We know how it can feel, especially in the heat of the summer when you're just taxed and overtired and have to go deal with another job. So we really try to check in with our team. We do, goal setting meetings. We have regular quarterly check-ins. We use Slack as part of our software stack. And so we have a really great company culture within our Slack. We have all these silly emojis and a couple of fun channels and a couple of dedicated channels for production and feedback. And it's great. And most importantly, Finley and Emily, who's my other admin, do a great job of just regularly checking in with everyone individually on the team and seeing if they need anything, seeing how their week is going, seeing if their schedule was too tight or if they could squeeze more in, and really making sure that everyone feels included and not just like a cog in the wheel of your little media hustle, because it can be, it is a grind. Let's be totally honest. Like, this industry is a grind. It's hard work. It's requires a lot of working on your feet. Carrying around a gimbal and a tripod is hard work. It's physical. The communication that's required is very nuanced and requires a lot of soft skills. And, it's really important to treat the people that you work with that are on your team as humans and better than humans. Treat them like your friends and your buddies.
Yeah, absolutely. That's beautiful. I think, the success that you've built and is all earned. Like it sounds like you've built it brick by brick. You're taking care of your employees. You're taking care of your clients. You've had your fair share of challenges that you've been able to lead your team through. So I think you're very well deserving of all the success that you've had. 1.4 million, is definitely a number that a lot of agency owners dream of. And I think the message is loud and clear that it's not just get rich quick, hustle, hustle, hustle. It's more about, like, hey, take care of business, take care of the team, show up every day, put in the work. Like it's not about, a get rich quick type mentality. It's a get rich quick or get rich for sure by putting in the work and building and taking care of everything. So I love that.
Yeah, and I could elaborate more on, so many of the intricacies that have helped us build a nice, stable platform as a company too. Everything from our tech stack and our policies, HR stuff,
Yeah. What
diversification
are
out.
some of the
Yeah,
technologies that you use that have helped you like glue the team together?
great question. Right now, we use Tonimo for our booking and customer flow and delivery. I think we were one of the first 5 Tonimo partners going on,
I
3 years
think
now. Yeah. That's been great and definitely an excellent investment. Slack is probably our most used piece of software. We have 50 terabytes in Dropbox. Thank God we got grandfathered in with that.
same.
And Google Suite. And then we do all of our edits in Adobe. And let's see, we use Agora for our social media, Monday for our kind of big picture planning and KPI stuff, as well as some spreadsheet tracking, Google Sheets, Google Docs, Canva for content creation, Envato, Motion Array for plugins. Yeah, I mean, our tech stack
Yeah.
is pretty big, and those bills add
You
up
spend you
monthly
spend
too.
as much on tech as a good employee, it sounds like. But is it worth it? All that?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it does feel a little bloated at times, and I think it would be authentic if it didn't. It's so easy to just think that another piece of software is going to like solve your problems, but software takes time to use and learn and input. So, but those definitely help, and we do love Slack. I can't even think back to the time when we used email to communicate for everything. So Slack has really helped us as a team to grow and
Yeah, for
consolidate the
sure.
communications.
Email is the bane of my existence. I only send it as a formality, like kind of like a hey, this is your official onboarding. People feel like it's a little bit more legit when I send it not through text or through a Slack message.
Yeah, the
I
spam
do
is
it as a formality.
the email spam is out of control, and I know you as an agency owner too. Just like I can only block 100 people a day. Still, give me a break.
At this point, I mainly I'll take responsibility. I sign up for a lot of newsletters. I'm because I'm a marketer, because I'm in sales. I'm the easiest to be marketed to and the easiest to be sold because I'm like, what are they doing? How
I
does this
know,
funnel work?
I
And
know.
I
I'm
sign up and I'm
curious
like,
too.
okay, now I'm in the drip campaign. Okay, what are you gonna send me next? Hey, I actually like this. I might borrow this for my own marketing. So I don't hate it entirely. I kind of I have some appreciation for the good ones, but yeah, there's definitely the ones that I'm like, how did you even get my email? And why are you trying to sell me something that is completely unrelated to my industry? And I have people like, sending me texts these days and calling me from like Spain. And I'm like, dude, like, you're lucky I picked up this phone call and I'm answering your text. And then I'm like, can you send me your website? They're like, we don't have a website. I'm like, dude, you're not going to sell anyone without any sort of credibility. Like if you don't even have a website I can look at or like reviews I can look at, like, they're like, we just want to present you our. I'm like, no, just stop right there. You're like, I'm not interested. You don't have a website. We're done here.
Yeah, I know. If you can't send me a follow-up email after you call me at dinner time, I'm sorry. Like
Yeah,
we're not doing
with the
business.
custom domain, like it can't be like Jennifer Ying 1234 at yahoo.com. I can't take you seriously
Yeah.
as a business, as an agency owner. That's just like custom domain at the very least if you're even a small company. For me to take you seriously. And I know there's some exceptions. There's some people that just are grandfathered into their Gmail, but they have a reputation that they will refer to you, and then you can actually trust them. But for those who are like sending me a cold email from a weird Gmail or Yahoo or Hotmail account, I'm like, just stop, just stop right there.
It's yeah, it's a crazy time to be alive. Let's be real.
Yeah,
It's so much. So yeah, it's interesting too as the industry kind of shifts towards all these trending reels with the bold text and the motion graphics and animations. And gosh, that's only been around for a year and I'm already sick of it.
yeah,
And it's like destroying my feed, and it's become just a caricature of itself with like how many bold yellow block letters do I need to see on my feed? Like, can we
yeah.
get some originality? And I'm ready for a creative renaissance in social media and content
It's
marketing. And
coming. I already feel it. I'm coaching with like Neil, who that's how he got his first success from that. He got like 100,000 followers, got to $4 million in like income from. He's a lender that like started that type of content, the short form talking head content, and he's already transitioning his entire like audience, or not audience, his like the students that he's mentoring and the other like business owners that he's coaching, including myself, that this year is a year of authenticity. If you can't come off as someone who's real, that like can just speak it off the top of your head rather than saying line by line at the camera with the Harmozy captions, that
yeah,
even Harmozy's getting out of that because it's becoming saturated. And that's the lesson that we have to internalize as agency owners. Like, what's working today is not going to work tomorrow. At some point there's an expiration date of your offer, and it's the same with every single company. If Apple stopped innovating after the iPhone 4S, which was an amazing phone at its time, would it be able to compete with what Android and Samsung and all these other companies are putting out now? Every single year you got to try to put yourself out of business to a certain degree. You got to try to cannibalize your own market share. Otherwise, someone else who's going to come in, try to do it for half the price, with more these trendy like speed ramps. Yeah, they'll catch they'll catch like a percentage of your clients because you're choosing to stay comfortable.
yeah, you're absolutely right. You can't put a dollar value on authenticity. You can AI script and subtitle and caption and motion graphic your way into oblivion these days. But, if you really want to come out with something from the heart or something that's, a strong opinion, like put it out there. I think it's important. And I've never really had that forward facing personality where I've wanted to be some big larger than life persona. And I think it's an important reminder to your audience too. Just because you see a lot of that out there, that's not the only way to get to where you want to be. And if it's good to put yourself on camera and be the face of your company and all that, but don't think that that's the end all be all to success. Like, I don't know. Some of it's kind of icky in my
Absolutely.
opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I know there's some like coaches who are like, hey, if you want to be successful, you got to lead by example and be also on camera, which there's some truth to it, right? You can't like completely shy away from it and say, hey, it's never for me. You got to at least try it to see and develop and actually internalize what it's like to be on the other side. But there's also like, you can be very successful by being behind the camera. Like, you were behind the camera for the first 8, 9 years. Obviously, I think you're pushing yourself to try something different and new. I think if you can help other people become successful, you can still borrow the authority from that, case study saying, hey, I helped this person and this agent and this other agent uh,
Yeah, a good
get to where they're at.
testimonial.
And yeah,
Let your clients do the talking. I know you guys are big on referrals, and that's huge. And the industry does talk. You better believe those real estate agents that use you, especially if you get a high profile agent who's really crushing it, like people see that, and there's a lot of ways to grow organically without just Instagram vomiting short form reels all over the place. And
yeah,
it's important to keep that in mind because it's easy to get distracted by all these shiny objects and flavors of the month or the year, whatever it might be. But yeah, we added a package this year that's 4 reels for a property video. It's a set of house photos and then 4 vertical reels, including a virtual skylapse. It's something we've been working on innovating, and after a month, it's selling really well, and people are into it, of course, because vertical content is
yeah,
everything right now. But we just added that. We deleted 2 packages. We are constantly tweaking our product offerings, always looking at our pricing, keeping detailed analysis on profit margins. Our lowest tier service, our listing photos, is a loss leader for us. We're aware of that. And we continue to price it as such to stay competitive in our market and to get new business in the door. So there's a lot of ways to dissect it once you get to scale, and not even to the scale that we're at, but I mean even smaller, especially if you look at it, like I said, quarterly and every 6 months and annually, and really have a chance to reflect back and not just try to pivot every chance to what's going to work, but just
yeah.
kind of take a beat.
Don't innovate for the sake of innovating, right? Don't do it just as a show, as a farce. Like, do it with intention of like, this is the result. This is where we see the industry going in the next year or two, and actually have intention behind the products and the services you're putting out.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
Yeah,
testimonials are important, and referrals are important. And yeah, sharing your work, obviously, it's is the age that we live in. And like I said, really was very early on adopting on Instagram. And now the 37 other real estate media companies in my market are all doing a great job at social media too. So,
yeah,
all you have is your reputation, and it is really important that you keep that up, and that you, like I said earlier, if you screw something up, you need to own it quickly. You need to not just fix it, but over fix it and add some value for the trouble and inconvenience that you cause your clients. And if you do a great job with something, it's okay to ask someone for a review or a testimonial, especially if you've got them for an on camera. You can incentivize that and say, hey, I'd love to
yeah,
get you on camera for this next one that you book. I'll comp it if you can give me a quick plug for our business or something like that. There's just so many little opportunities like that that are important to see the value, and not just trying to get paid, but see the value in working through, whether it's a new program or a new training or doing some work for your own company, whether it's copywriting for your website. Another thing we didn't touch on, but web development is definitely important in this industry. And doing work for the sake of work. For me, I'm down here in the Dominican Republic filming 13-year-old Dominican kids jumping 100 feet in the air doing backflips, because it's fun for me, and it reminds me why I started filming in the first place. And it's important
Love that.
to still do it because you want to.
Yeah. As we wrap up this episode, first off, thank you so much for sharing all of your experiences with our listeners and our greater community, our alliance, our mastermind. What is one piece of advice, if you could leave one piece of advice with the future generation, like if you could share one piece of advice with humankind or maybe your younger self, what would that be?
Never stop investing in yourself, and for me, that has looked like a lot of personal growth, a lot of lessons that I have learned the hard way, that maybe could have been easier had I slowed down to evaluate and really, take some time to reflect on exactly where you want to be in a year, in 5 years, and to stay focused. I think distraction is everywhere, especially right now. And, I give a lot of credit to, having some practice outside of the digital world, having hobbies, doing yoga, staying fit, enjoying time with your family, putting the phone down, stop doom scrolling, and it's worse now than it's ever been. So I think my advice would be to really, work on your own personal development. It took me a lot of years to learn some big lessons. And I think my advice to the younger generation would be like, focus on being a good, well-rounded person first and being an internet celebrity or a media mastermind agency owner second.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes total sense. Thank you so much, Andy. And we'll be seeing more of you as well within our community. Excited for you to join us as one of the future mentors and consultants in the space. With your experience, I trust that a lot of agency owners that are younger can get some of the wisdom that you can transfer over to them, and hopefully they can avoid some painful lessons along the way. Because I know that you and I both have gone through our fair share of challenges, trying to grab at too much, or not have that balance in our life. And that's something that we've constantly had to tend to and fix and address and be mindful and live our life intentionally, saying, hey, we want balance, and that's why we built what we're building.
That's right. Well, thanks for having me on and allowing me to share all that with you. And congratulations on everything that you've built with Aerial Canvas and ACRE Partner and all of your various ventures. And Brendan and I have been buddies probably, 4 or 5 years now, and business partners as well. So it's a pleasure to be on, and I'm excited about working with you in the future as well, man. So thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thanks, brother.